Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dependent on when you are calling us from. My name is Simbiat Yusuf Muller. I am the events manager at Fourth, and today on the fourth webinar, we'll be talking transforming school transportation with electric school buses. We'll be discussing approaches to further the adoption of electric school buses. Before I pass it along to our moderator, Lucia Mosca, who is a program manager at Fourth, I have a few announcements and updates from the Fourth team. Attendees, we ask that you please submit your questions through the attendee chat. We will get through the questions during our Q&A portion. We will also be sharing the resource links as well as the webinar recording and the webinar slides with you all before the end of day today, so you can continue the dialogue offline. And for some of you that are new to the Fourth webinar program and you don't know who we are at Fourth, Fourth is a nonprofit organization and we are on a mission to electrify transportation. We bring people together to create solutions to reduce pollutions and barriers to access for electric vehicles, electric transportation in general. Our work is done in 5 focus areas. We have policy advocacy, access to electric cars, access to charging, events and partnerships, and the team represented today, access to emerging modes. If you would like to learn more about Fourth, our programs, and how we do what we do here, the link has been dropped in the chat, and we will send a link shortly after as well. And the work we do at Fourth would not be possible without our members and sponsors. I do see a notification saying someone lost sound. If you could please just refresh your screen, that should do the job. Speaking of our members and our sponsors, the great work we do would not be possible without them. If you would like to learn more about our sponsorship and webinar and membership program, please feel free to connect with our membership and partnership manager, Rachel Haverkamp. Our email is on the screen and we will be sharing more information shortly. And I hope you all that were here did not miss the 2024 roadmap, which was 2 weeks ago now. We hope you saved the date, 2025. We are back in Detroit. We had so much fun. We had to come back. We are back in Detroit, October 14th through the 16th. We will be sharing some of the resources, presentations, panel videos shortly soon before the end of the month. So stay tuned for an email regarding recordings, photos, anything you missed. You can catch up on that via the roadmap website and more information to come on that. But we hope that you've saved the date for October 14th through the 16th, 2025 for the next year's roadmap. More information to come. And with that, I am going to pass it over to our moderator. Lucia, can you join me on stage?
Thank you, Simbi. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Transforming School Transportation with Electric School Buses webinar. My name is Lucia Mosca, and I'm a program manager here at Fourth for our Access to Emerging Modes team. I've been at Fourth for 2 years working on our electric school bus program, and I focus primarily on research about electric school buses, light technical assistance to school districts, and most recently, a Repower project. I'm going to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. Jessica and Phillip, could you please join me on stage? And Jessica, please start us off with the introductions.
Hi, good morning, you all. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Jessica Keithan, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Texas Electric School Bus Project. Our mission is to facilitate the speedy and equitable transition to a zero-emission school bus fleet in Texas and beyond. Let's see.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Phillip Burgoyne-Allen. I am the manager for technical assistance and policy implementation at the Electric School Bus Initiative that is hosted by the World Resources Institute, and I am based in New York. Great to be with you all today.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. Yes, please turn off your webcams while I set the stage for our topic today. So today we're here to discuss transforming school bus transportation with electric school buses. And we've seen the electric school bus field rapidly change over the past few years, with electric school buses becoming more accessible to school districts due to increased funding opportunities at both the state and federal level. We're also seeing an increase in information available to school districts. Groups like WRI have been providing one on one technical assistance to school districts that are interested in electrifying, and also putting out truly excellent resources for school districts interested in electrifying their fleets. They publish tools and articles that range from data about the cost of ownership to guides to operating these buses in cold climates. We're also seeing a normalization of electric school buses. We see groups like the Texas Electric School Bus Project who are bolstering momentum to the electric school bus fleet transition, taking these buses on a roadshow and even decorating an electric school bus to look like a catfish for a parade, which I definitely want to hear more about later. And here at Fourth, we're currently engaged in an electric school bus repower project with Beaverton School District. A repower is the process of removing the internal combustion engine of a diesel school bus and replacing it with an electric powertrain. And so we've been working on this with Beaverton School District. This repower is scheduled to be the first repower in the state of Oregon. The Beaverton bus is currently at the Unique Electric Solutions facility, and we expect for the repower to be completed by the end of this year. If you have any questions about that project or repowers in general, feel free to put them in the chat. Our panelists I'm sure, would love to talk about them today. Fourth is also hosting an electric school bus ride and learn next Monday, the 21st, at Beaverton School District. Attendees will have the opportunity to ride an electric school bus, speak to the BSD transportation team about what it's like to have these buses, take a tour of BSD charging infrastructure, and learn more about our repower with them. So if you're in the Portland area and are interested in attending, please check out the link in the chat to register. All right, so I'd like to invite Jessica to turn back on your webcam and join me on stage. And attendees, again, while Jessica's speaking, feel free to put your questions in the chat. All right, Jessica, take it away.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Jessica Keithan, founder and director of the Texas Electric School Bus Project. I also want to take a moment to familiarize everybody with our amazing business development director, Michelle. Michelle has been working on this project with me almost since the beginning, and we really wouldn't be where we are without her. And so I put her email address up there, but don't forget the .org on the end that I forgot. So we are a nonprofit organization founded in February of 2023, and we're based in Houston, although we really do work to be all over the state of Texas. We aim to ensure that every student in Texas has access to a clean, safe, reliable transportation. We are dedicated to helping school districts access operations and maintenance savings, and we believe that electric school buses can do more than just transport our most precious cargo. We believe that electric school bus adoption has the power to be really transformative in communities across the country. So to that end, we focus on building the foundation for a sustainable electric school bus ecosystem here in Texas, and as the title suggests, beyond. So I definitely want to tell you a little bit more about the Texas Electric School Bus Project and what we do, but I also want to zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture where we are when it comes to electric school buses. And I'd like to thank in advance the folks at the World Resources Institute Electric School Bus Initiative for the creation of so many amazing resources. You'll see some of them in action in the next few slides. So the state of the union for electric school buses, Lucia was hinting at this as well. Momentum for electric school buses continues to grow. As of June, we've got more than 1,500 school districts or private operators committed to procuring more than 12,000 electric school buses in 49 states. So states, municipalities, school districts are all setting electrification goals while manufacturers scale production. There are 26 models available for types A, C, and D buses, 20 newly manufactured models, and 6 repowered models. Each new generation of bus becomes more advanced. The current range of models is between 100 and 300 miles, which is enough to cover reliably most of the routes in operation in the US now. This gives you a little bit of an idea of how the numbers have grown over the past few years as well. So it's really just been some electric growth, if you will. So electric school buses make up the largest transit system in this country. Every day we transport more than 20 million students. In Texas alone, it's like 1.3 million students per day. More than 90% of these buses run on diesel fuel. We know that diesel exhaust pollution presents real health and development dangers to students, drivers, and communities. We know that ESBs have zero tailpipe emissions. So what about Texas? Everything really is bigger in Texas. Texas has the largest school bus fleet in the nation. We have over 50,000 yellow school buses, and like I said, we transport more than 1.3 million kids in the state every day. There are now 424 or so electric school buses committed to coming to Texas, with more and more being deployed every day. At the beginning of just this school year, we had over 500 Texas kids riding zero emissions buses. And we have a long way to go, but that's 500 more kids than were in electric school buses in Texas a few years ago. And I think that's a reason to celebrate. Also want to shout out to Martinsville Independent School District, a small rural East Texas school district that was the first in the nation to run all of their daily routes with electric buses. So great job, Martinsville. And now to tell you a little bit more about what we actually do as the Texas Electric School Bus Project. One of our core activities is advocacy, advocating for policies and programs that support the electrification of school buses in Texas. We work with a variety of stakeholders to create an environment that's conducive for the adoption of electric school buses. We do lots of education and outreach with programs and events like the Bayou City Electric School Bus Festival in the spring. And as Lucia also talked about, our roadshow project with TechCetra. We also have toolkits available in English and in Spanish to help people advocate for electric school buses in their own communities. We also offer technical support, resources, training to school districts and communities interested in transitioning to electric buses. We have or are in the process of developing Texas-focused toolkits, case studies, and guides that help districts navigate the complexities of electrification. We also focus on market development. We work with companies and organizations big and small to develop strategic partnerships with companies that can provide quality products and services to school districts. And we seek to partner with organizations that share our mission and vision for the future. So knowing all of this, what's holding us back? Why are we not able to electrify the nation's school bus fleet more quickly? This is a list of some of the main pain points as we see them, but I'm going to zoom in and highlight a few of them. The first one I'd like to highlight is the high upfront cost of electric school buses and chargers. Electric school buses have a higher purchase price compared to traditional diesel buses. This significant initial investment is a deterrent for school districts, especially those with limited budgets. And even though electric school buses offer long-term savings on fuel and maintenance, the initial financial outlay is a very significant barrier. There's also the complexity of charging infrastructure. In most cases, this is what school districts struggle the most with. They have to understand infrastructure needs along with different technologies, navigating installation challenges, site assessments, construction, etc. Ongoing maintenance and operation of the charging infrastructure require technical expertise and consistent monitoring. There's also the role of the utility. In order to navigate the process, districts must identify and engage key contacts within the utility, and then understand electric utility rates, demand charges, and available incentives. We know that this is essential, and we know that delays or miscommunication can and does impede progress. We know school districts need help, and utilities across the country are starting to offer time of use rates and other incentives to make it easier for school districts. In Texas today, there's only one utility seeking to meaningfully address this issue, and that's El Paso Electric. So thank you. You set an excellent example. We need policies to support school bus fleet electrification, both at the state and federal levels. At a state level, we need to work to utilize the full potential of this electric transformation, harnessing the power of electric school bus batteries as distributed energy resources with the potential to offer energy resilience and a source of capital for school districts. There's also the issue of incomplete funding. So what do we do? And I know I only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to give you part of our proposed action plan. So addressing high upfront costs. We have to leverage our funding sources, help school districts understand the total cost of ownership, help perform a comprehensive analysis of the total cost of ownership so that they can see the long-term savings in fuel, maintenance, operational costs. But really getting back to something that I hope is a big topic of conversation today, which is repower. It's repowering existing diesel buses. And Lucia talked a little bit about this, but the main difference is that repowered buses do not use a brand new chassis and body, but take advantage of an existing bus. These buses, repowered and new, can complement each other within a school bus fleet and be part of a total fleet electrification strategy. They also cost significantly less. Repowering can also prevent a bus from continuing to pollute in another state or country, avoid scrappage and reduce waste, limit manufacturing emissions, and help avoid susceptibility to supply chain delays. They can also offer an avenue to really powerful training tools. I know that it's not without its own set of challenges, but this remains an emerging solution that can offer a dramatic cost savings. At this time, there has not been scaled deployment, but they will play an important role in the full electrification of school bus fleets. And then we're moving towards the end of my time, but we can talk about this in the question and answer section a little bit more. We've got to figure out how to simplify the charging infrastructure, help school district develop phased implementation plans, allowing for success today and growth tomorrow. We need to help enhance utility coordination, stress early and frequent communication, help negotiate favorable rates, explore energy storage solutions and vehicle-to-grid technology. We need to help school districts secure complete funding, diversify funding sources, develop long-term financial plans that really actually makes this work for them long-term. So we're working towards a future where clean transportation is the norm, not the exception, so that our kids grow up in a world where their health is prioritized and we can really see the full potential of this transformation. Thank you for your time and attention today. There's just a little bit more information up here. You can go to our website to learn a lot more about our projects and programs. You can learn how you can get involved with the Texas Electric School Bus Project. And I would be happy to speak with anyone further about any of these topics. I feel like I just gave you a lot of information. And I'm excited to see what Phillip follows up with. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to discuss further.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Glad to be with you today. My name is Phillip Burgoyne-Allen, as I said, and I work at the Electric School Bus Initiative, which is part of the World Resources Institute. So first, I will tell you just a little bit about WRI. We are a global research organization. We have offices in different countries on different continents. We have over 1,400 experts working on a variety of issues that cover everything from electric school buses to electrifying transit buses, protecting our oceans, forests, clean energy, anything that impacts the environment, WRI probably has someone working on it. But at the Electric School Bus Initiative, we're specifically focused on school buses in the United States and in North America generally. We are trying to accelerate the adoption of electric school buses, so we do that in a variety of ways. We work with community school districts, industry experts, really anyone who needs to be at the table when you're thinking through a strategy for electrifying school buses and bringing more of those buses to the market and to school districts, having them on the road. And really our overarching goal is to build unstoppable momentum to electrify the entire fleet in the US that's 480,000 vehicles, one of the largest public transit fleets in the country, the largest actually. And we want to build that momentum by 2030. So we know that's an aggressive goal, but through opportunities like this and our work with districts and states, we're trying to make that happen. And lastly, we want to make sure that that transition is equitable so that the communities with the highest need or the highest exposure to vehicle pollution like diesel exhaust are the first ones to get these buses and not the last ones. So why electrify school buses? There are a number of benefits that come along with electric school buses: improved health for students and drivers, cleaner air for the surrounding community, reduced operating expenses for maintenance and fuel costs. There are also opportunities for new jobs to build these school buses and to be the ones out on the ground who are servicing these vehicles as well, for the next generation of electric vehicles that we think are only going to be more and more popular, and more and more widespread as time goes on. And these buses also have benefits for the resiliency of the overall power grid. So you can use them with bidirectional chargers to basically have that giant battery in your bus help support the electric grid. There are also other ways you can use that battery to power a building or charge other things in the event of long duration power outages. So we think there are a number of benefits, but the one that resonates most with me are the harms of diesel exhaust. So we know kids, drivers, others are using these buses every day to get to and from school. But we also know that diesel exhaust has a lot of negative effects on student health. So we want to make sure that as much as possible we are limiting students and drivers' exposure to diesel exhaust, which obviously has a lot of negative health effects. Jessica covered some of this in her presentation as well, but just a quick update on electric school bus adoption, because we've seen these zero tailpipe emission buses more and more thanks to a lot of the funding that's available. So right now there's over 12,000 of these buses that have been committed to. That includes, being procured, being awarded funding, being delivered, or being on the road in operation. And they've gone to over 1,500 districts. Importantly, 66%, almost 2/3 of these buses have gone to school districts with the highest shares of low-income households. So again, we want to make sure that this transition to electric school buses is equitable. We've seen commitments in 49 states and a number of other places as well. If you have any friends in Wyoming, give them a call. Let them know that they can also get these electric school buses because they're the 50th state there. But glad to see a lot of people interested in this across the board. And these buses are also operating in a lot of different types of communities. So, cities, suburban areas, towns, rural areas, we're seeing a lot of districts for a lot of different reasons adopt these electric school buses. I also want to cover the Clean School Bus Program. This is a federal funding program from the EPA. This is the largest source of funding right now for electric school buses. It is a 5-year program that is providing $5 billion for replacing older polluting diesel school buses with newer electric buses that, again, have zero tailpipe emissions. So this program has already awarded nearly $3 billion in funding for the first few rounds of the program. 95% of those funds have gone to electric school buses. Propane and CNG, compressed natural gas, buses are also eligible, but we've seen overwhelmingly people are looking to electric as the next option if there is funding support there. And right now, this program is actually open. So through January 9th of next year, 2025, the next round of rebates from TESBP, the Clean School Bus Program, are open for applications. And EPA anticipates awarding nearly $1 billion. So again, that $3 billion that's already gone out is going to go up to $4 billion. So we're excited to see such a large chunk of funding be available at one time. So we really strongly encourage folks to check that out. There should be a link coming in the chat now, I believe, about some of the resources we have on our website to help you apply. So check that out. How to apply to the Clean School Bus Program on our webpage. We've got a lot of helpful resources there to help with that. And then also this program is, this round of funding for the program are rebates. So it's a much simpler application process than most federal grants. You don't have to write that 15-page project narrative. Really it's a matter of providing some information about the buses you want to replace and getting a few forms signed to make sure that, the school district's on board, your school board knows that you're applying, and to make sure you're coordinating with your utility. So again, please check out that program if you're interested, because we think it's a great opportunity for folks who are looking to electrify their fleets. I also wanted to flag here in the bottom right corner of my slide, you'll see a note about tax credits. I don't have time to dig in on the tax credits in this presentation, but you can get some additional funding on the back end that now can go directly to school districts, even though they're tax exempt. So we're very excited about all the funding opportunities that are out there, really trying to make this possible for states. And some of these programs are also coming at the state level. So we've seen that federal program catalyze these state programs. They're happening in a number of different states, 32 total, but we're happy to see that states are picking up the baton from EPA and running with it as well. And since Jessica mentioned repowers, I did want to highlight that some of these programs are available to support repowers. So a few states, as well as the federal and state Diesel Emission Reduction Act programs, allow repower funding. So check that out. I packed this slide deck with some resources since I know it'll be sent out after. But yeah, so I have to move through quickly here, but did want to flag that. So challenges facing electrification. Folks on the line probably know some of these, but funding gaps, not having enough staff to manage the program, challenges with charging infrastructure and operating the buses, making sure everyone's on the same page. These are all challenges we've seen districts address, but they can be mitigated if you're planning proactively. So here are some lessons that we've learned from successful deployments. Having a project manager who is the central point of contact for electrification is a huge help. Making sure you're coordinating with your school district across multiple departments. As Jessica said, engaging your utility early and often, and other local partners too. Again, bringing everyone to the table will be a big help. Centering equity, making sure that you're engaging your community and being thoughtful about where you deploy your buses. Prioritizing planning for charging infrastructure. I'll spare you reading through all of these. Hopefully you can take a look at the slides. But again, we have learned a lot from the districts we've worked with, and we've tried to take what we've learned from them and bring it to everyone else. So I encourage you to check this out, check out our webpage. But, really just having a plan can really take a lot of the burden off of the school district to make sure that you have a smooth process. And since everyone is, always asking about charging infrastructure, I did pull together some recommendations there too. Again, talk to your utility, focus on equity, be mindful of your operational constraints, like where kids need to go from where they live to where they go to school, what kind of routes that is, how much time you have, factoring that all in the front end will really help you get it as you get these electric school buses on the road. Being mindful of your utility rates, batteries and chargers, there's a lot of different options, but all in all, just like thinking long-term, having a holistic approach. So, sadly, I could spend a whole hour just on this slide, but I will leave it there for now. But again, we've tried to pull these together in different publications so that districts can have what they need as they plan for applying for funding, as well as actually having buses on the road. So we want to make ourselves available for that. So if you're interested in engaging with us to learn more about what we're talking about, there should be some links coming in the chat here now, but we do have weekly office hours where you can schedule time one-on-one with our staff, where we can help answer, those like unique niche questions you might have that don't apply to everyone. We can try to tackle those. And as I've shown already, we have a lot of general resources too, but we're always happy to sit down with districts and try to help them navigate any challenges or answer any questions that they have. And you can also sign up for our email updates. So we publish a lot of things. We let people know when funding programs are opening and available. So again, you can sign up for our email updates or join our weekly office hours to get in touch with our staff. But we do try to help everyone we can. So I encourage you to check that out. And then lastly, I wanted to share a few resources here beyond what I've already mentioned. So I've bucketed these into some different categories. But basically the takeaway is any issue you're facing, we probably have a resource for it. So encourage you to check out our website or reach out to us directly. But we've got a lot. So I will stop there. I appreciate everyone hopping on this webinar today and glad to share our resources with you. And I believe there should be a link coming in the chat, just a quick 5-question survey. I try to drop a quick survey every time I do a presentation so we can improve these for future audiences. So if you have a chance, please give me a minute of your time and just answer a few questions. But I will stop there and hand it back to Lucia.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Phillip. And yes, please submit any questions that you have for either of them in the chat. I have seen this question pop up in the chat about if these slides will be available after. And yes, all webinar slides, the recording, and resource links will be shared after the webinar. All right, so let's dive into this Q&A. So my first question is, what trends are you seeing in your electric school bus outreach initiatives? And also feel free to speak to Repowers if you would like. But Jessica, I know you've been on the road in Texas, so I'd be really curious to hear what kind of engagement you've gotten. And Phillip, same question to you.
Yeah, well, I would say that the engagement across the board really has been very good. I think that the road shows have been very successful. We've taken electric school buses out into communities, big, medium, and small across Texas, and gotten on the local news, done community events at chambers of commerce, things like that. And it's really nice to bring this to where people are and then answer whatever questions they have. So if you want to see some embarrassing clips of me on the local news in Texas, just Google my name. But I think it's a good way to get out in front of people. But I think that the biggest trend that I'm seeing is the difficulty that school districts are having actually getting these deployments off the ground and solving some of these problems that we've brought up, which is why I'm glad that we're doing things like this to try to solve them.
Yeah, and I would echo what Jessica said there. What she's seeing in Texas, we're also seeing nationally. We try to get out to as many conferences as we can and meet folks on the ground. I think 2 years ago we heard a lot of these buses aren't going to work. They're going to catch on fire. I'm retiring in 5 years. Why am I going to deal with this? And I think more recently we've heard people coming around more, and instead of just being skeptical, trying to focus in on how they actually deal with the challenges that they're having. So, what do you do when you have a project delay because you need to wait on your utility for infrastructure? What do you do when, your buses are down or there's some other issue you're trying to navigate? Winter's coming and you're going to have to manage a different weather than you have in the past. So I think seeing districts really kind of get their hands on these vehicles and start working out the kinks, we're very happy to see that, because I think a lot of districts are grappling with some of these nitty-gritty challenges, which, that means there's buses out on the road. So we're happy to see that.
Excellent. And I did see a couple questions about repowers. So one was, has Beaverton School District established their charging needs ahead of the repower? So I'll answer that real quick, use my moderator privilege. But yes, Beaverton School District has charging infrastructure that they have already had set up. So that was not really part of the scope of this project. But I would like to ask our panelists, for repowers, what is the average cost of completing a repower for a bus compared to purchasing new? If either of you could speak to that.
Yeah, well, I think that, like all of these things, the answer is it varies. But I would say that there is an average that we can get to. And so the comparison that I think is good to do is that a Class C diesel bus is somewhere between $150,000 and $175,000, depending on how it's kitted out. And a new electric school bus is averaging around $375,000 to $400,000 per bus. And a repower is coming in at around 175, and that's sort of like the average that that I've heard. So I think that those are very significant numbers to compare.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is in line with what Jessica said. Our interest is we want to see the prices of electric school buses go down across the board, right? As the technology continues to develop, as battery prices continue to come down, we think that's going to happen. But repowers, it's another segment of the market that can create more competition. So, if you're able to choose between a repower bus and a new electric bus, then that's only going to create more downward price pressure as there's more competition. So, any and all buses we want to see electric, whether you're getting rid of a really, really old bus or maybe you're repowering a newer bus that's still in good shape. But yeah, definitely cheaper upfront price for the repowers, and that's the huge selling point. So yeah, excited to see people go after it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And another more common trend that we've been seeing in the electric school bus world is conversations around V2G. Has any of your work revolved around vehicle to grid? What has that been like?
So I will say that in Texas, this is a really big deal. And I think that anybody who's somewhat familiar with Texas might understand why. We've got significant grid challenges in Texas, and then also the uncertainty of weather events. So, like in Houston, where I live, early this summer, we had two big power outage events that were deadly in the city of Houston. And so, when we talk about vehicle to grid or the ability to use electric school buses and their batteries as distributed energy resources to sell energy back to the grid or to create energy resilience and independence for school buildings and districts to do vehicle to building and power buildings during disasters. And this is something that is a huge selling point in Texas. When you get to this level with people, this is the icing on the cake that makes them go, okay, I think that this is now something I can sell to my school board because this is something that we need. This is what we think about all the time anyway. And then also in Texas, we've got a very interesting new amendment to our Texas state constitution. It's the Texas Energy Fund. And it ends up creating a $1.8 billion fund to create microgrids on areas of critical infrastructure. And it includes funding to use specifically electric school bus batteries as part of those systems. So we'll see how that plays out over the next year or so, year or five. But there's significant funding coming down the pipeline in Texas for this exact thing. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I'd say nationally, in some places like this is the president, right? Like PG&E in Southern California has vehicle to grid programs stood up. There are districts participating, generating credits, right? Like this is happening places. In other states or other utility territories, it's maybe more in the pilot stage where they're just starting to roll out some of these programs, but it is coming because this is not just for electric school buses. This is going to be true of electric vehicles across the board. So it's going to happen. We're really excited about it because, again, right, it's like an electric school bus is just a giant battery on wheels in some ways. So it's great that kids aren't getting exposed to diesel exhaust, but there are also all these other technologies you can pair them with. So, but bidirectional charging for vehicle to grid, that's going to help reduce your cost even more, right? So if you have electric buses and solar panels or, participating in vehicle to grid, like these are other things where you're not just reducing your emissions, you're also going to start cutting your electricity costs. And when you're, then that only further drives the advantage against diesel where you're bringing your electricity costs closer and closer to zero. So excited to see that.
And I just want to piggyback on that a little bit more and add to it, and just that I think it brings up the point that this transformation, like we've kind of all said, it's bigger than just transporting students. This is already such a big deal. It would already be worth doing if that was the only thing we were getting out of this, is giving our kids a clean ride to school. That's enough. But it's also so much bigger than that. And if we think about it properly in sort of this systems thinking, we can get a lot more benefits out of this, not just for the kids, not just for the school districts, but for the community as a whole. And I think that that's really exciting. I very rarely have seen something that I think has the potential to be so possible and so transformative for so many people.
Yeah, and one last thing there too, Jessica and I both said pretty early on, like in our first bullet points, right? Call your utility. This is another place where you don't necessarily need to understand all the ins and outs of how bidirectional charging works. I certainly don't, but there are people who do, and they work at utilities. So you should definitely reach out to your utility, see what's available, and how you can take full advantage.
Absolutely. And speaking of grid resilience and sustainability, do you have any suggestions or resources for community solar developers for working with electric school bus suppliers? Or I guess school districts rather, who are interested in electrifying?
So, it's interesting because I think that this kind of is the reason that we started the Texas Electric School Bus Project, is because there are these kinds of questions that come up that don't have obvious answers from different stakeholder groups' perspectives. It's like, so you're a solar company. Yeah, how do I go about interfacing with these school districts and who do I talk to? And so I think that that's what one of the roles that community organizations like the Texas Electric School Bus Project and also like the World Resources Institute, they can play those connecting roles. So we make it our business to know what people are up to in the world of electric school buses in Texas and beyond. The folks at WRI do the same on a more national level, Fourth as well. And so getting in touch with us, honestly, is a great place to start. And between the people in the room, I'm almost certain we can get you to the right folks. And that's the beauty of this kind of work, is that it's all about bringing the right stakeholders together to solve the problems that we can individually solve. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess first I would say, we're a nonprofit. We're not affiliated with any vendors. We will not tell you what to buy or who to buy from, or we are truly vendor agnostic. But as Jessica said, we do make it our business to try to know who's doing what. So again, we try to put out as much information as we can. So we have a market study and buyer's guide that we just updated a little bit earlier this year that lays out all the different models that are available for electric school buses, who the manufacturers are. We have some other resources on our site that look at who are the people providing charging services, what kind of services do they provide, and trying to provide get that information out to people so they know where to start, because there really are so many vendors, especially on the charging side. But again, I would just say reach out if you have questions, because we can likely connect you to some of our resources that help lay that out. And even though we won't recommend anyone to you specifically, we can kind of explain some of the pros and cons of different choices you might be making.
And I think that that's a really good point, Phillip, and something that groups like this, like yours and like mine, can really do, is help sort of sift some of that out and make sure that we at least are steering people away from groups that we know are not doing good work. And I think that there's a valuable role that can be played by third-party organizations.
Yeah, I find that school districts often need someone to talk through ideas with. So being able to talk through the pros and cons of the decisions that they're making, and also have someone who can pass them off to trusted resources and people in this industry, is really a benefit. I have been seeing some discussion in the chat about fire safety in regards to school buses. And, uh, earlier before this call, we were talking about some of the misconceptions in school buses, or just some of the things that we commonly have to provide information about. So, what kinds of questions do you get about fire safety, and what advice do you provide?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So I would say, first, yes, there is a risk of fire that comes along with electric vehicle batteries, but sure. But at the same time, we know the data shows overwhelmingly that the diesel vehicles and gasoline vehicles catch on fire at much higher rates, right? Because they are full of combustible fuel, and so when you do have fires, the fires that are happening are much more likely on gasoline and diesel powered vehicles, full stop. But that doesn't mean there's no risk for batteries. A battery can overheat, and that can be a dangerous thing. But manufacturers are taking this into account when they design the electric buses. A lot of the manufacturers are making this. They're making the diesel buses and the propane buses and the electric buses. It is a safety first industry. They would not be selling these to you if they were not safe. They are safe. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a role for planning. So one of the groups that we want to make sure districts are coordinating with are first responders, because even though there's a lower risk, that doesn't mean there's no risk. And so, making sure first responders know you have electric vehicles in your fleet, because they will need to respond to them differently, right? If there's a fire on a diesel bus, you respond to it very differently than a fire on an electric bus. So again, it's like school districts don't need to be the experts on every topic, but they need to know who the experts are that they need to have around the table. And so first responders are definitely on that list. So I don't want to be too long-winded. I will stop there. But in short, diesel vehicles are going to catch on fire at a much higher rate than electric vehicles. And again, it's not only electric school buses. This is something that everyone looking into electric vehicles is working with: battery manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers. So, again, just loop in your first responders and go from there, and you can certainly have a plan in place to manage any sort of risk.
And I guess I can just sort of say that I agree with all of that. We know that the statistics show that fires on electric buses are much more rare. And I obviously we want to answer all of the safety questions that exist. It's like anything that comes up, yes, let's look it straight in the face and let's figure out a good solution, because these are our kids on these buses, of course. But I also think it's important to really take a close look at the long-term dangers that are just as real as these short-term ones, and that is the cognitive development delays and the problems that these kids are having from riding the diesel buses long term. And so I think that that should be a part of our cost benefit analysis in all of these conversations.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, Phillip, about how school districts don't need to be an expert on every topic, but they need to have experts at the table. And that's a big part of our work, connecting people with experts who they can trust. I did want to ask, now that we're seeing states set goals for electrification and, telling school districts we would like to have this many buses electrified by 2035. And we're also seeing school districts set their own goals, which is amazing. I guess the next question is about timeline. So we're seeing that projects for electrification can take years. What are timelines looking like across the country for fleet electrification? Essentially, how quickly can a school bus fleet operator convert their fleet to electric?
Yeah, I can tackle that one first. I mean, first and foremost, it varies because, like the buses you're buying might be made by different manufacturers. The charging equipment you need might be different, or like how much of it you need, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into timeline. I think just from like when you order the bus to when you get it, in general, we see around 12 to 18 months. Obviously, I know there are folks out there who have seen a longer wait times than that because, it's a new manufacturing process, so things happen. But 12 to 18 months is what we estimate for getting the bus itself. But if you need to, some people might I need to install 5 low power level 2 chargers. But you can do that. You can install a level 2 charger in hours. But if you need to, if your utility needs to come out and put in a new transformer so that you can get more power to your site to charge more vehicles, then then maybe you're waiting on a transformer, or maybe you have to go through the utility process for them to come out and do work. Maybe you want to get your depot ready for full electrification. Maybe you want to have 25 chargers, and some of them are DC fast chargers that are higher power, so you have more flexibility, and you need to dig out, dig a lot in your lot and do a lot of construction, right? That's going to be a very different timeline. So, it's really hard, I would say, to pin it down exactly, but we do know districts who, have been working on this for the past couple of years. I mean, the Clean School Bus program only opened in 2020, so there are districts who have been getting funding in multiple rounds of that, who have, 10, 20, 50, LAUSD put in a purchase order for 180 electric school buses. So, folks are doing it, big districts, little districts. Yeah, the timeline might take some time. You might need to plan around it, but the sooner you start planning, the faster that timeline's going to be. So, again, like everyone is interested in the buses, but Jessica and I will both tell you, like, start with the charging infrastructure, start with your utility, because that is what's going to drive your timeline and what sort of infrastructure you need.
Yeah, and I also want to piggyback on that a little, bring into to this a couple of the points that we've been talking about, and how do we speed this up? And I think that repowers answer some of these questions as well. So, how do we solve some of these timing issues? Well, one is that repowers can happen a lot more quickly than new electric school buses. So there's that. But then I think that what's awesome is that as these problems have been coming up, that their solutions are also beginning to pop up as well. And that is really cool. So we know that there's a transformer shortage. We know that utility upgrades are costly, and we know that they take a long time. So what could exist that could make it easier? So there are technologies that exist that can do some of these things, that can shorten these wait times. There's a really cool technology out of Ohio, Edge Energy, and they have a proprietary technology that turns single phase power into three-phase power. So they can run DC fast chargers on the power coming to a light pole, which really revolutionizes the ability to put these buses into rural settings. So there's all kinds of things that are coming up and that are possible, but it takes this kind of work as well, this kind of networking, this kind of deep talking, so that we can get to those solutions and bring them into this ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the solutions are coming, right? Again, it's like these are things that are true of all electric vehicles, and on the private sector side, timeline is so much of like what drives their considerations and profit margins and everything. So like there are vendors who are having it's like maybe you have to wait a long time for a transformer, but you can get a charger that can like step up the voltage on its own and drop that in. Or maybe like you're waiting on your maybe you lease your depot and it's going to take a long time to figure out construction, but there are wire like portable chargers that you can drop in that where you don't need to dig. There are some districts who are doing all above ground infrastructure where you basically have like a shipping container that has a transformer inside of it, and you just drop that on your site. All your conduit and wiring is like in a case that you can drive over with a vehicle, and you're all above ground. You're not digging anything. So one of the charging infrastructure is complicated, which is a challenge, but that also means that there's so much flexibility. So you can do all sorts of different things. So if you're having a challenge, it's probably not unique, and there's probably at least some sort of solution out there that you can explore to try to make that go faster.
Totally.
That's a great point. Speaking of getting school districts started, if a district is interested in electrifying their fleet, what are some good tips on where to start?
Call your utility.
First.
I mean, many.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before this call, and I think that that's something that we tell school districts. But who should they call it their utility? What kinds of questions do they need to ask?
Well,
you
so
brought
it
that up.
turns,
Yeah,
yeah,
please,
no, this is really good. And I bet we both have answers to this. One thing I'll say is that I've learned that most school districts, at least in Texas, already have a dedicated person that is supposed to deal with the accounts for those school districts. Interestingly enough, often those people, neither one of them knows about that, which is why these kinds of communications are important. So reaching out to your utility and asking that, hi, do you have a dedicated person on staff that deals with school districts? And then go from there. Do you have a dedicated person on staff who deals with electrification? And all of these questions can sort of guide you to the correct beginning. Also bringing an electrician out to your site that independently and trying to find out what kind of power you have on your site so that you've got an idea. I know the World Resources Institute has a great resource that helps folks go and do sort of their own energy assessment for their site. And it's really comprehensive. It's like a workbook type of a thing. So, yeah, I would start there. And then I would hire a project manager if at all possible.
Yeah, that's good. I'm very much aligned with what Jessica's saying here. I just put a link in the chat for attendees We have a power planner, which, you know, basically is like, here's some of the step-by-step things you need to do when you talk to your utility. Here's what your utility is going to ask you for, and here's what you will want from your utility. You know, even if right, and this is where working across departments and working with multiple stakeholders is so important, because like your transportation department, maybe it's all diesel, maybe you're not really, you know, maybe you're new to thinking about electric, but the school district is the utility customer. So there's someone at the district who is paying the electricity bill. You know, it could be your finance office, it could be your facilities manager, right? So like, talk to the different offices, because, you know, like electric school buses are a facilities project and a transportation project and a finance project, right? On and on and on. So I dropped that link in the chat, and then I'm Jessica's other point, besides going to utility, I'm blanking on what it was, but it was also a good piece of advice.
Project manager.
Yes, thank you, project manager.
Yeah.
Right, so especially if you're working on like a big infrastructure project, right? If you're like a big urban district who wants to electrify your whole fleet or a big chunk of it, hiring an EPC, an engineering and procurement and construction firm can be a real help, because then you are not the middleman between all your different vendors. You know, it's like you go to that firm and they're the ones who are managing the vehicle, or like buying the vehicles, supplying the charging equipment, managing the construction. That can be a great fit. Obviously, you know, not a reality for every district, or especially like a small rural district, right? Maybe you can't bring on a private firm, but you can at least have a project manager. You can have one go-to person who knows, you know, like facilities is doing this, transportation is doing this, or like where are we at on our utility coordination? Like, here's where we are we at on our funding application, right? So having someone who is the person to go to, it's gonna, you know, it'll be.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend checking out that link that Phillip put in the chat. I feel like the Electric School Bus Initiative at WRI has so many resources, and any topic that I'm looking for an article on, I can usually find on their website. So highly recommend that. All right. Well, thank you so much to our panelists, Phillip and Jessica. This was such a fruitful conversation about the past year in electric school buses and what you guys have seen in your respective work. And I look forward to seeing what the next year of electric school bus brings us. And yes, this is all our contact information. Thank you all for attending. I'm going to hand this back over to Simbi.
Thank you all. Thank you, Phillip. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Lucia, for this great conversation. I know there's been some chats on what's the contact information for our speakers. Here is their contact information. Again, we will be sharing the resources, the recording, as well as the slides shortly after this webinar. So if you missed anything or you thought you missed anything, all of that information will be shared with you all shortly. Just want to say thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you all in November. Our next webinar will be on Tuesday, November 12th, where we will be discussing right-of-way charging. We'll learn how cities, utilities, community stakeholders can collaborate to scale right-of-way charging. You do not want to miss that conversation, so tune in for registration information. More information on that will be shared with you all shortly as well. If you missed anything, we also had the conversation about fires in electric transportation, and that was shared in one of our keynote plenaries. So if you want to learn more about that, that is also recorded to further dialogue and further share information. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing you all in November. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.